Live here on this Friday as we close down the week. Like, share, comment, subscribe before we get out of here. Shea Dixon's going to stop by. We're also going to talk to Amy Vanderveer and Dr. Artie Brown from the Flower Fest as that is going on this weekend. Hopefully the weather is like it was yesterday. The weather was incredible yesterday. You could have found Shea Dixon posted up on the Superior side porch, I'd imagine. On those margaritas on that beautiful sunshiny day, strapped up as always.
Strapped with Doritos.
Shea, good morning. How are you?
Can still carry for tequila.
I'm doing well, guys.
Happy Friday to you, buddy.
Happy Friday. There's no Superior in my future. I'm supporting Flower Fest.
Nice.
Tequila's a flower if you look at it long enough.
Nice.
So Superior marks to go.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Couple to go. Beautiful day for it, Shea. Yesterday was a beautiful day to be on the practice field. Stewie was out there, Shea, and we were talking about starting from recruiting and young recruiting here, a couple of classes away. But people got their first look, some people did, and were just amazed at Lamar Brown, the offensive, defensive line prospect out of University High, who is right now class of 26, projects where when he's talking next level, because it seems like he's high end on both lines of scrimmages.
Yes, I think that both the LSU offensive and defensive staff battle here to say, hey, look, half jokingly, half serious of, are you going to be a D lineman or are you going to be with us on the O-line, and his lead recruiter being Joe Sloan, the Baton Rouge area recruiter. So right now, I think that it could still go either way. Mm-hmm. We have him ranked at On3 as the number one interior offensive lineman in America. So guard, center type, he could play right tackle. I mean, this is one of the more athletic kids out there at his size. But I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up going on the D-line in college. I think this one could still go either way. But regardless, we have him right now as the top 5 overall prospect in the country, regardless of position. So we've talked about it before, but you look at next year, and Jakeem Stewart, number one D lineman in America, is the number one player in America right now coming out of St. Aug. And then you've got the number one, whether you call it interior O lineman or a D lineman in Lamar Brown, and the number one safety, Blaine Bradford, both playing here at U High and Catholic. So going to be a stacked top 10 next year when it comes to Louisiana recruiting and what it means nationally.
One of the other things that's jumped out is the faces at practice, right? During this spring practice run. Lamar Brown was there yesterday, but he's been one of just many faces that has been around the facility. What have you made of seeing all these guys that are taking in this LSU spring practice?
Yeah, and Blaine Bradford out of Catholic was there as well. So toss in another local kid, Elijah Haven from over at Dunham, who has made some waves. He started at quarterback as a true freshman, but also plays basketball. He's a legit 6'4", so he's a guy that is already picking up football offers as a true freshman. He was around this week. You want to get the local guys in as much as possible. And Lamar Brown, again, a top 5 prospect nationally, they don't take advantage of him just being at U High. He was at, well, they do. I guess you don't take advantage of it in a way where you neglect it. You take advantage of it where you get him around, and he was at both practices this week. So I don't know, is U High on spring break, or I don't know, maybe they just get out of class at different times. I don't know what they're up to, but Keelan Moses was there, Emmanuel Moses.
Mm-hmm.
You know him as well, Jordy. Yes. So that whole crew of U High kids made it in on Thursday, and then, as I said, a number of them earlier in the week. But they've gotten a lot of out-of-state kids too. Almost each practice, they've had a big-name out-of-state kid who they've offered at practice. And that was the same yesterday. I mean, you look at C.J. Wiley, one of the top 10 receivers in the country. His dad, Chuck Wiley, obviously played on the LSU D-line, was an All-American, All-SEC type player. He's growing up in Georgia now, though, so the Bulldogs have kind of been viewed as the team to beat, but they've kept him around a good bit. And I know we talked about the U High kids and Blaine Bradford, but I will say another kid to keep an eye on who was at practice again yesterday was Landon Hammond, and he's going to be a senior at Opelousas. Opelousas has a really good defense. They've got a lot of guys on that defense that will end up playing college football. And Hammond is one who they're looking really close at. I mean, we're talking well over 6 foot long, and a guy that with Corey Raymond here that kind of fits that bill of what they normally go for at the position. So yes, they will be recruiting corner nationally, but they've got that early commitment out of Westgate and Jabari Antoine, and people ask, hey, who could be, there always is, who could be that other Louisiana guy that pops up? And I think you would call the front runner, at least at the moment, Landon Hammond.
What about the Florida 5-star DJ Picket? Speaking of Corey Raymond, it seems like he's made some waves here recently with Picket.
Yeah, so Pickett's a guy that was heavily recruited by Raymond at Florida. So as soon as he got here, that's an easy transition to make. And when he got here, it wasn't, 2 weeks before DJ Pickett was on campus. And at that point, LSU had not really been tied to him at all. And he came straight out and said, I'm making this visit because Corey Raymond's there now. And since then, they've had him on campus again. They've already got an official visit locked in for the summer. I think he'll be back for the spring game. I have to double check. That's next weekend. But they've had him around now enough to where they're firmly in that lead group. And I would say in my mind, if he leaves the state of Florida, again, we're talking the number 1 corner in America, that he's going to end up at LSU. If he stays in state, maybe a team like Miami makes a big push late. A lot of kids in Florida of that caliber, whether it's FSU or Ole Miss, have had to battle off Miami making big NIL pushes for guys. So we'll see how it ultimately plays out. But this is what you wanted when you brought Corey Raymond back was, hey, immediately put LSU back into the mix for the top corners in the nation, and that's what he's done.
What about former defensive lineman out of New Orleans, Patrick Jenkins?
Yeah, there's all the buzz kind of around him, but he hasn't, to my knowledge, hit the portal yet, unless I've missed something in the past 24 hours or whatever it's been. But he's a guy who will be in a position to graduate. So I think that this May. So I think there's been some speculation. Oh, could he enter as a grad transfer? And obviously that would make a lot of sense for LSU. What's tough here, he was committed to LSU at one time, right? Like he was a guy that was on board and they kind of went in a different direction. He ends up at Tulane, and you look up down the line and he's a preseason Bednarik Award candidate and starts for him every game and makes all conference and all of these things. So as they continue the search for D linemen, yes, I'm keeping an eye on guys like that who could enter the portal as graduates and then come in and help immediately next year. But I also got to talk to a guy who did just that out of Wisconsin, Gio Paez, who I think it's his 5th year now. He'd been at Wisconsin, and he just said, look, when Fickle got here, things just got different on the defensive side than from when Jim Leonard was here and had really perfected that defense. And he said, look, I love Fickle. I got to play more than I ever did because I was a vet. But he did a lot of nose tackle stuff. He thinks he can be a little bit more versatile in what Bo Davis and Blake Baker's defense and defensive alignments and assignments will be. So he says he can play some nose. He'll also play some DT. Mentioned a number of different sort of shades that he can kind of fit into and techniques that he's sort of working on right now to be ready to get to summer at LSU condition. And then in the fall, be there for fall camp. But I would think that if you're calling D tackle, those 2 spots, the 2 you want to see them active with in the portal, a guy like Gio Paez was a nice start because, look, he comes with experience. He comes with plenty of games played. And at 23 years old is a veteran body in the room. So you've got him, you've got Giller, you've got Jalen Lee coming back. You've got Sean Washington in from JUCO. You're not going to have to rely on just young guys. And I think they'll continue to add more in the portal. And then we'll see what Dominic McKinley can bring when he gets here this summer, who is obviously their 5-star signee. But again, as a true freshman, how much do you get out of a guy like that? I think LSU staff's been around long enough to know, hey, look, we'll see. But in the meantime, let's bank on some adding through the portal, some veterans this offseason. And they've added 1. I would guess they had probably 1 to 2 more.
The wide receiver class is stacked for LSU next season, including DeCorian Moore and Teron Francis. Moore, number 1 player in the country at that position. Francis, number 1 player in the state of Louisiana. Now they have their sights it seems like, set on a couple of other 5-stars. You mentioned some of the wide receivers that were here, including C.J. Wiley, who's Chuck Wiley's son. But what about the 5-star wide receiver from Texas, Khalil Lockett?
Yeah, he's the number 2 receiver in the country, and there is a chance here. Look, he's been around LSU already. Hankton's been on him heavily. He's going to come back for the spring game. Then he'll come back again during his stretch of official visits, which will run from kind of late May into June. So they're firmly in the mix there. And I think the storyline to watch here, Jordy, for another 5-star receiver, you mentioned that they've already got the number 1 receiver in Louisiana, but also noteworthy to this topic, the number 1 receiver in the country and Texas in Decory Moore. Texas is on Decory Moore really, really hard to get him flipped. We already knew the narrative when he committed what was that his family grew up Texas fans from around Austin, all of those ties. So we knew the Longhorns weren't going to go away and aren't. At the same time, they're recruiting Khalil Lockett really hard. So I almost view it as, if I'm an LSU fan, I hope we either hang on to Moore or that if somehow Moore defects at some point and ends up somewhere else, that you get Lockett, right? Or you get a guy like Lockett where, yes, it would sting very badly not to land the top receiver in the country, but you make up for it with another elite talent. I think there's a world where you could be very greedy and LSU gets both, but you don't want to live in that world where you don't get either of them. And I know right now you can't lose something you don't have in Lockett, but they'll continue to pursue him and others. And I think the priority just remains, hey, look, how do we put ourselves in the best spot to not just add guys, but hold on to what we have in Decory and Moore and Teron Francis.
John Bro, hashtag Ask Shea. Shea, any update on running back JT Lindsey?
A-Town.
Gosh, this kid's good coming out of Ash. And every few years, right, we have somebody come out, whether it's DJ Chark, whether it's now a guy like Jacoby Guillory, who's probably going to be starting this year. But yes, Old Lloyd's neck of the woods is producing one right now in JT Lindsey. He had some great track times over the weekend, and 4.0 student, everybody up in that area on that staff just raves about him, saying, hey, look, this kid's the real deal. And Frank Wilson had kind of been on him quietly for a bit, and then a little bit more publicly this spring when he was going to Ash, checking him out, having him in for visits. So, yes, they're going to wait and see what James Simon does here, the top 10 running back coming out of Calvary Baptist. But you look at it, he's the number, James Simon, uncommitted, coming out of North Louisiana, as I said, is the number 8 running back, I think, in the country. We have JT Lindsey at number 11, so we're not talking about some massive drop-off in talent here. If there comes a spot where they feel things are shaky with Simon or anything like that, I could see them making a move on JT Lindsey. I also wonder if there's not a world where they take 3, because this is a kid who has the talent to play at the SEC level and seems to already have the attention of the LSU staff. I think if it weren't for James Simon, he'd already been offered. So, yes, they've got Harlem Berry in the boat. He's the number 1 running back in America. Where do they go from here? I still lean that probably the next committed running back is Simon, but again, don't rule out JT Lindsey here. I think he's got enough talent to where they almost might be forced at some point to say, hey, we have to jump in the mix just to not let a kid like this leave the state.
You mentioned Elijah Havens. It seems like Evangel's got a big-time 2027 quarterback as well. James Wade wants to know, hashtag Ask Shea, 2027 prospect, Evangel quarterback Peyton Houston.
Yeah, he's a guy who, Peyton Houston is at Evangel now. He had been at Calvary. Was that the case? I can't remember how he made that jump. Or maybe there was some movement between the two schools. But, yes, he has been the talk of coming out of North Louisiana the past few months. I think, yeah, he was playing at Calvary and then stopped, and then he went because he was battling that senior over to Evangel. So, I'd keep an eye on him. I think right now, let me make sure I'm correct on this. Yeah, offers are already in from Ole Miss, A&M, and Texas and State, excuse me. So 3 SEC offers, Arkansas being a 4th, already in. He's at double-digit offers. And again, class of 2027, you're just a freshman. So not many kids are playing as true, high school freshmen out there. More so, they jump into it as sophomores, and then by for sure by your junior season. So, yes, in Louisiana for 2027, that's two names: Elijah Haven, being here in Baton Rouge at Dunham, and then a guy like Peyton Houston up in North Louisiana, who are already stacking up big time offers. In fact, they look pretty similar on their offer list, kind of dipping into some SEC schools, into Texas, and then a guy like Haven has some, coming out of Miami. I think it'll be interesting to see how that class pans out, because not often, guys, are we talking about Louisiana and quarterbacks.
It's crazy. Yeah, they could have the two of the tops on the board in 27. One more, Shea. You mentioned that you had a chance to speak to Gia Pizet. Was it the defensive end from Wisconsin?
Paez, yeah.
Paez. What was that conversation like? What did you learn about him?
Good. I mean, he talked again about just wanting to go from playing in a 3-down, defense to 4-down defense, which is what Blake Baker and obviously the staff will be implementing going forward. And he said that gives him a little bit of position versatility, because he can play tackle or he can play the nose spot if you need him. And he also said that I guess to give you kind of a sense of how hard they're on guys or how quickly they are trying to make things happen, even in the portal. Paez said he put it, because he's a grad transfer, he didn't have to be in the windows. So, I think it was in the beginning of March, he said he had put his name in, got the email, hey, you're officially in. And he said he packed up his book bag, starts walking to class, phone rings, doesn't know the number, answers it. It's Bo Davis. So LSU's sitting around there waiting for guys at this position to hit the portal. And he said Bo Davis called and asked, hey, look, why are you leaving? What are you interested in? Let me watch some film. I'll get back to you. And he said, next thing you know, we're talking again. He invited me down for a game. Invited me down for a visit. And then he said he had visited, I think, in March on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And he said by the time he got back home Monday, he announced that that's where he was transferring to and canceled the rest of his visits. But I think more than anything, he said that between he and Bo Davis, it was, look, you've played in more than 30 games. You've got a number of starts under your belt, and you've played in a big-time conference against, good competition. You come down here and you'll have a chance to start, and certainly you'll be competing to play in every single game. And I think that's what Paez is looking for. And he said, look, I would probably be this. I would run first team and be the starting nose tackle at Wisconsin this year, but I want to be a little more versatile than that. I want to be in a 4-down, 4 defensive linemen across defense at the moment in my career is kind of my final step. And that meant leaving Wisconsin. So he said it's not often that a starter does up and leave, but I think we knew that this would happen when LSU can almost advertise, hey, we returned 2 interior defensive linemen and 3 combined starts all going to Guillory, that guys like this who started other schools around the country will look at it and say, hey, I'll make the move because it fits me a little bit better, or maybe I'm moving up in competition. I want to play in the SEC, whatever it might be. This won't be the end of it. I think they end up with 3 D-line transfers here when it's all settled with the portal stuff.
Shea, you talked about Landon Hamming being one of the Louisiana cornerbacks that LSU would be looking into. What about Aiden Anding? He's recently got offers from Arkansas, TCU, Miami, and Texas.
Yes, I think, and coming out of Ruston, boy, and you talk about Opelousas having a good defense. Ruston proved a year ago, and we know again that they'll have one of the best defenses in the state. But Aiden Anding's a guy that I think that between spring evaluations and summer camp could very well get an offer, and I'd put him right up there with a guy like Landon Hammond. And then a lot of people around Bunkie have talked up Kyle Johnson, who I think they want to get him in. He's a true kind of camp guy because he hasn't taken off with a ton of out-of-state offers. But people who have seen him and those around the Bunkie area say, hey, look, whenever this guy gets in front of college coaches as he continues to go, he's going to see his recruitment take off. So this isn't a shock, but small towns around Louisiana, they will offer up a number of athletes. And it seems there's some guys in this class that could fit that bill when it comes to defensive back or that cornerback position. So I think they're going to go heavy on it, add a number of them. I am not going to be surprised at all if it's not just Jabor and Antoine here in Louisiana, if they don't go after 1 or 2 more guys.
Shea Dixon, this latest or this upcoming transfer portal, this portal is about to be popping, right?
Oh gosh, yes, and well, I'll trust Hayes Fawcett when he says, "Hey, look, y'all think it's wild? You should see these kids you're setting up." And I think that's what it comes down to. Something I alluded to a minute ago is guys starting for teams where you're like, they already were starting for that team, and is this a lateral move or is this this is something I haven't seen before where they just up and leave for another team and just go start for them instead. I think that's what we're going to see out of this spring portal window. I don't think that they're drumming it up and it's going to be I don't think that we're Pat 40 in this where you drum up something and you read the article and you say that was it. You go through the portal window and that was it. That was nothing. I think this will be a lot of kids kind of shuffling around after spring ball. And so this is not going to be one of those things where it's just backups who are leaving to be backups at other spots. I think we'll see some very noticeable or notable names enter here in a couple weeks, but I might be wrong. We'll get to see, though. 14-day window starts, I think, the 13th or 14th, something like that. So we're about a week away.
Shea Dixon, that's 3 in a row Fridays for my boy. This is you're trending towards being consistent, my friend. Hopefully we see you at some point in studio on a Friday, but it's great to talk to you.
Well, if you know, you know. I didn't. The dialogue that's happening that I'm allowed to hear before we go on air is worth the price of admission. So I'll be here every Friday on 8 Boys. Just call me even earlier. I'll just sit on the line.
The behind the scenes always the greatest ones. At Shea Dixon every Friday right here. Good stuff. Have a good weekend. Take it easy on the margins this weekend.